So let me introduce our speaker this morning, Julie Fortin. She is the owner of Bébite Organisée, Organized Bug, a decluttering company in the Outaouais, Ottawa, and Eastern Ontario. Julie is a member of Professional Organizers in Canada, POC, and the Institute for Challenging Disorganization. So over to you, Julie. Enjoy the video conference, everyone.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Lynn. For those of you who don't know me, as she mentioned, my name is Julie Fortin. And to give you a little bit of history on myself, I was born and raised in Cornwall, Ontario. So I'm very familiar with the Francophone community from Eastern Ontario. But I also, I'm fully bilingual. So please bear with me if sometimes I um, I I may try to slip in a French word here and there, but I will do my best to provide you the presentation in English today. So let's get started. All right. So getting ready to downsize. So what does that mean to get ready to downsize? So let's get started with understanding what downsizing is. So downsizing is moving into a smaller place of residence or a home where you're either moving into whether it's a 2,800 square foot home to a condo apartment or a resident home, or even if it's from an apartment into a smaller apartment, that would be also considered downsizing. It could also be if you're not going to be moving, it can also be reducing the amount of items found in a permanent space. So it could be staying in within your home or your current residence. And what you're trying to do is reduce the amount of items that you have within your space. So how do you know if you're ready to downsize? One of the ways to know is thinking about, are you using all of the rooms in your home or your apartment? Sometimes uh, when our style or our lifestyle is changing, we may still be living in a home that we're not using all the spaces for multiple reasons. The other point too is, are you spending a lot of money on maintenance? So for those of you that live in a home, are you paying different companies to mow your lawn, to plow your driveways in the winter? It could be even trimming trees. It could be even cleaning the home, the bathrooms, et cetera, et cetera. So thinking about that, if you're living in an apartment, depending on the size of your apartment, are you spending a lot of money with having somebody come in to clean your apartment? It could also be with for some of you, the apartments have condo fees. So are you spending a lot of money on condo fees as well? Um, Next, we have the challenges in maintaining the home. Are you physically able to maintain your home? So if you're not spending the money on services to maintain your home, it could be that the just passing the vacuum or dusting becomes a little bit more challenging due to physical limitations. So really thinking about these things to know if you are ready to start to downsize. Um, the other reason could be you want to move closer to your family. Maybe your family has moved to another province or another city, and you want to get closer to the grandkids or even getting to be closer to a brother or a sister. So that could be one of the reasons too. It could also be for medical reasons. Medical care. Do you live out in the country and to um, to go to your medical appointments, it takes a lot more time. So that could be also a reason why you want to move closer and you want to downsize to another location. It could be your lifestyle. Maybe it's changed over time. Maybe you're more active and you want to be closer to the daily activities that you do. It could be that you're no longer doing a lot of the sports that you used to, and now you're doing a lot more indoor activities. These are things that have changed over time. The other item is changes in your physical health. So maybe you were fit and you were a lot more mobile and it could be knee problems, back problems, shoulder problems, arthritis. Maybe something has changed in your physical health that make it that you now have to make that decision to downsize and move into something slightly smaller or even moving towards a resident home. It could be for financial reasons. You're living in a big home and having to pay uh, the home taxes and the water bill, the hydro bill, like a lot of that can accumulate. So maybe it's for financial reasons that you need to move into something a little bit smaller. So doesn't matter the reason for it, but it's to take a look at, are you ready for that next chapter in your life when it comes to downsizing? Now, with a show of hands, whether you can give me a thumbs up with the icon or the clapping option, can you, out of the participants here today, how many of you have been in your home for more than 30 years? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up here. I'm seeing some reactions. It could also be just a thumbs up on the camera if your camera is on. Perfect. So I'm seeing a few people that have been in their home for more than 30 years. How many of you have been in your home for more than 15 years? So 15 to 30. So those that already gave me the thumbs up over 30. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up, a lot of emojis popping up here. All right. So, and then we have the remainder, 15 or less. How many of you? Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up here, thumbs up. Okay, there's a few people. Okay, perfect. So to help you better understand the life cycle of the clutter that you have in your space, really depends on the amount of years that you have been in that environment. So for those of you that have been more than 30 years, you may or may not have children. So for those that have had children, just to give you a perspective, when you have your kids from 0 to 9, they tend to have a lot of collections, rocks, sticks, stickers, like they could be collecting pretty much anything that they find fascinating. They've done a lot of crafts, arts and crafts. They may have a lot of toys, equipment, whether it's sporting equipment, art equipment, musical equipment, etc. So as they grow older, when they get into their teenage years, they tend to start to read a little bit more. So they have a collection of books. They may have a lot more souvenirs from the different trips and activities that they've done through the school or even in their personal life. Uh, it- they have a lot more clothing and their hobbies, etc. So as they grow older, so in the adult years, we start to see a lot more documents, photos, furniture, gifts. And on top of that, they may have held on to some of the stuff from their previous years. And as we grow older, then it switches. we may have a lot more medication that we have in our home, medical products, belongings of a deceased member of the family or a friend, or close relative. And for those of you that have lived in your home for over 30 years, well, you may still have some of the things that belong to your kids. They may still have a room that was dedicated to them, and they still have their stuff in that room. If not, then they may have been put in boxes, which are now either in a specific room, a basement, or the attic. And when we're talking about living in a space for 30 years or plus, but it can also be for those of you that have lived 15 years or more in your space, you may have accumulated your own items over the course of the years. What I come to declutter um, people's homes in the aging population, what I'm seeing is that oftentimes they still have things that belong to their kids in their home, that take up some precious space. I also see a lot of items that have belonged to previous deceased family members that they've had to empty a home or empty an apartment, and then some of those boxes come into your home. So then you have those boxes of items as well. For those of you who may have been living with a family member that has passed away, then you have those items still sitting in cupboards and on shelves or in basements that still belong to those family members. So with the time, what we see is that we've accumulated a lot of items, right? So stuff that belongs to our kids, family members, our own personal stuff as well. So that makes a lot of clutter to go through in a home, especially the longer that you've lived in a home, the more that, statistically speaking, you've accumulated over time. So to help you with decluttering, there's a couple of concepts that you can use for yourself depending on the type of personality you are. For some, these may work, and for others, it may not. So the first one we have is Spark Joy by Mary Kondo. Um, the premise of her concept is taking an item and asking yourself, does this spark joy? Does this make me happy? For some, this concept will not work because you love everything that you have in your space. So this concept will be a little bit more challenging to use because it won't help you to let go. But for those that pick up an item and you ask yourself, does this bring me joy? If it brings back really negative memories, then you know that it doesn't help you in your day to day because it brings back some really bad memories you don't want to hold on to. So those items would be items that you would let go. Then we have The Minimalist by Joshua Becker. So his concept is only keeping the minimum in your space for your day to day. I know this concept is a little bit more tricky because um, to really live with what you only need, which would be a plate, a bowl, a glass, a set of cutlery. And when I mean a set of cutlery, I mean a spoon, fork, and a knife. For some of them, just going to the bare minimum is a little bit more challenging. So maybe this concept is not for you when it comes to decluttering, but it can also help you to understand um, when we're looking at objects, if they are used, can they be used for more than one thing? Oftentimes, what I see in kitchens is that we have a mixer, we have another appliance for this, for that. Can can one item do multiple things? And if so, then why have all of this specialty different appliances when one of them can do multiple things, then that's a good way of minimizing what you have in your space. Then there's the Project 333, which is more geared towards with clothes. So getting dressed with 33 items or less for 3 months, which means that, and when I'm talking about 33 items, here we're talking about the coat that you may be wearing, pair of shoes, all of the accessories. Don't forget, you have the belts, you have the earrings, the scarves. You also have, um, I can't think of the word right now, the ties for the men. So really looking at, can you get dressed with only 33 items or less for 3 months? For some people, that would be a challenge. And for others, they would be able to wear 33 items for the next 3 months. Then there's also the concept of the moving method, which means that although you're living currently in your home or your apartment, getting into the mode of what if I move tomorrow? What are some of the items that I would want to move with me? So, getting into the mindset of um, as if you're going to be moving tomorrow, what are some of the things that you would want to hold on to? And for some of you, this would be a great method to get prepared for that eventual move down the road. So the next concept that we have is playing the game of the 30 days of minimalism or 60 minutes. And you find 100 items that, or objects within your home or space that you want to let go. So, and when it comes to 100 objects, for some of you, you may say, I don't think this is possible. It is. You could find a pen. Go through your pens. How many pens can you let go? It could be elastics. It could be a piece of paper. So 100 objects within your home can be fairly easy to go through if you really think about it, because it's not the big stuff. It could also be the small stuff, going through that junk drawer that you have in the kitchen and sorting through what you have in there. I'm sure you could find 100 objects fairly quickly. Then the last one that we have is the Swedish concept, which is the do standing, which is the death cleaning. I know this sounds a little bit morbid, but this is a concept from Margareta Magnusson. Um, so in the Swedish culture, it is an insult to the person who passes away to leave the to leave the all of your stuff for the family to clear out. So in the Swedish culture, before you pass away, it is your responsibility to start to get rid of your items. And I understand that you can't get rid of everything before you die, right? Um, but it's to get rid of as much as you can before you die, so you don't leave that work for the family to do after you pass away, because it's stressful enough for them to grieve your loss. Then they have to go into your space and go through all of your items, which is an extra stress that you don't want to leave to your family to do. So this is a concept that I find quite interesting, to be honest. And as Margareta Magnusson once said, a loved one wants to inherit beautiful things from you, but they don't want all of your things. So really keep in mind that some of your family members or friends or even neighbors, they may want to inherit some of the stuff, but they don't be insulted if they don't want to inherit your fine china or the uh, your tools or your collection of dolls or some of the things that you cherish doesn't mean that your family members will cherish as well. So Here are some of the strategies that you can use to help you declutter. So if you're consider moving, start decluttering now. Because decluttering is not something that you can do overnight. So it takes time, it takes effort. So starting to declutter a little bit at a time is really good to do. Another strategy is to tell your family and friends, or even some of your acquaintances, that you want to start to downsize and you want to declutter. Family members can be very helpful, friends and acquaintances as well. They can help you to do some of the heavy lifting for you if you have physical limitations and mobility challenges. And having that extra person beside you can help you to go through those items a lot faster. The only caveat I would put here is just to be mindful that if the family members you don't get along with, or if they're trying to push you to make decisions that you're not ready to do, then tell them. And if it doesn't work, then find somebody else who can help you. Start with items that are less personal or sentimental. And the reason for that is the emotional burden or heaviness of making decisions on things that are really hard on a personal level or a sentimental level will slow you down. So, in cases like that, I always tell my clients to put it in a box, put it aside, and move on to the things that are easy for you. For some people, going through their clothes is easy, but going through their books is a little bit harder. So, start with your clothes and then do your books down the road when you pick up that momentum and you have time to really process the work that you're doing with decluttering. Give things away gradually. So it doesn't have to be planned, or um, when it comes to giving your things gradually, it could just be you're going through a drawer and you're like, okay, I don't need this anymore in the kitchen. Maybe you used to have big family gatherings, but you're no longer the one that does the family gatherings. Now it's moved on to somebody else within the family. You don't use all of the things in your kitchen. Start with a cupboard and take a look and be like, I don't use this anymore. This is a great way of slowly downsizing what you currently have so that it doesn't become overwhelming for you. Another strategy is to keep a small amount of souvenirs. For some of you, keeping things for emotional and sentimental reasons is challenging. And for others, maybe you've traveled a lot and you've collected things over the years. It could also be that you've collected things through when you used to work, or maybe you're still currently working. So, really looking at keeping the small amount of souvenirs so that it doesn't take up a lot of space. And one thing that I really recommend is, if you're going to be keeping souvenirs, display them. Whether it's in a shadow box, on a shelf, in a bookcase, display the things that you want to hold on to instead of putting them in a box and hidden away in a closet. The other strategy is to sell or donate the rest. So when it comes to selling, I want to add a little caveat here, because the value that people sometimes put towards their things um, is not always the price that people are willing to buy. So what I mean by that is, you may have bought a really nice dining room set when you were starting off, and it cost you a lot of money. It could be $400 or more, I don't know. But then when you come to resell it, depending on the manufacturer, the type of material it was made, oftentimes items like that could be selling for $200, $50. Really depends. It varies. So be mindful that the value that you put towards an item doesn't mean that it is worth the amount that you believe it's worth. So I highly recommend that you do some searching online to see what is the actual value of those items. To give you an example, a piece of clothing, once it's bought, unless it's a high-end designer clothing, most of the time it loses its value by half, if not by three quarters. So trying to resell a pair of uh, shoes or pair of pants that you bought for, I don't know, $200, it may be worth only 25 now. So just be mindful of that. And for donating the rest, um, find a nonprofit organization or your local area that accepts donations, and you can donate the rest. One of um, the trending ways of donating items is through the different Buy Nothing websites on Facebook, where it's in your area. You can post items. If you don't have a lot of items, that's a great way to donate the items. And you just find the person that's interested, you put it outside, and then it gets picked up. So there's very little effort when it comes to physically getting rid of some of those items. Then the next strategy is to identify what is essential to reduce the instinct of clutter or anxiety, or the instinct of hoarding, the fear of deprivation or need. So what I mean by that is holding on to things just in case, or holding on to things because you may need it down the road. From experience, and I've I've gone through that myself, where at one point I'm like, I'm holding on to things, oh, just in case I need it. And you know what I found? Over the years, out of all the items that I have donated, there's only once that I've had to rebuy an item. Otherwise, everything else that I've donated over the years, I have not needed to really hold on to, which which begs the question, why are we holding on to so many items of just in case? So I think the question to ask ourselves when we're having a hard time letting go of those items is really thinking about, can I buy it? If ever I need it again, can I buy it, or can I find it, or can I borrow it? Um, and this will help you to really put it into perspective that the items that we're holding on to of just in case, um, the future doesn't come, right? We live in the present. So if we're always living into the just in case, which is the future, then we're not allowing ourselves to really live into the present time with our items. So we're always fearing that we'll need it someday, but that someday may never come. So really be mindful of that when going through your items. Now, for those of you that have mentioned that they were living in their home for more than 30 years, uh, to really, or even, if you've been living in your home for 15, 20, 30 years, whichever the amount of time, there's a formula to help you to determine how long it may take to declutter your home. So the formula that you can use is using the number of years that you've lived into the home, divided by two, and this will give you the amount of months, approximately, um, of how long it would take you to declutter your home. Now, this formula is based on a daily routine of decluttering and the normal decision-making process. And I say normal lightly because everybody has a different way of making decisions. For some people, that formula, they could probably get it done a lot faster, and for others, it may take longer. So it really depends on your decision making process and how quickly can you make those decisions so that you can let go of those items. Now, are there any questions up to this point? Feel free if you had any questions regarding what I've mentioned.
Yes, Julie, we have something in the chat here. How can I support my spouse in letting go possessions she's emotionally attached to, like old dishes, teacups, clothes, coats, cookbooks, furniture, without creating conflict?
Okay, that's a really great question. Um, so if the person is having a hard time letting go, are those items attached to um, somebody in the family has deceased and they've inherited those items? If not, some of those items could be part of their identity. So this is how they saw themselves. A great cook, um, inviting people over for tea. So when it comes to helping others let go, it's to really focus on the why. Why are you holding on to these items? And not doing it in a judgmental way. This is very important. Oftentimes, family are very great at wanting to help, but they're putting their own perspective on what to keep and what to let go. So it's really helping the person make that decision on their own, but asking them the questions. So in this case, I would ask them, okay, why is it important for you to hold on to these items? And listen to what they have to say. So this is what I do when I help clients declutter. I listen to what they have to say. And sometimes they come up with, well, it reminds me of, you mentioned the teacups. Well, it reminds me of when I had tea with my grandmother. The grandmother passed away. So then I would use the teacups and be like, okay, so would your grandmother um, would your grandmother be upset if you would let go of, I don't know, if it's usually a teacup is not just the one, it comes in um, a quantity. Um, so then it's to take a look and be like, okay, would you be willing to donate half of it and hold on to um, a couple, or choose your favorites out of what is in the collection and let go of the rest? I know sometimes people um, attach an emotional, almost as if they have human emotions to the items, where, well, I can't separate a collection. Like the rest of it would be like, you can't split a collection. They would be sad. So I usually look at, what would be important for that person. Like if they're holding on to the cooking books, maybe they really enjoyed cooking and now they don't cook as much. So that's a reminder of who they were. Again, looking at which ones are your favorite ones. Are there ones that you have really great recipes that you could scan the pages that they really enjoyed and make a smaller book so that instead of having, you know, 30 cooking books, to just the one. So really looking at what is important for that person. Because I'm sure it's not the whole collection of cooking books. It could be that it's a handful of recipes that you can photocopy or scan and only keep the important ones. Does that answer the
Julie,
question?
yes, I believe so. Thank you very much. We have another
Perfect.
comment. My husband is a chronic just in case collector and very ADD. What strategies could be used, whoops, to
Uh,
help him make decisions about letting things go?
okay. So when it comes to just in case, one of the theories that, or one of the strategies that I would use in that case is putting those items just in case in a box, put a date on it, and then say, okay, um, and and see if he would be open to this and saying, okay, if in 6 months you haven't gone into that box of the just in case, would you be okay with letting that go? Because the just in case often derives from multiple reasons. For some, it could be that they grew up with family members that have gone through the Second World War, and when things were challenging and they held on to a lot of things because they didn't have money, they didn't know if they could find the items, and so they held on to a lot of stuff. So a lot of that comes from multi-generational mentality. Um, and I find that the strategy of putting the things of just in case in a box, give yourself a timeline and seeing, well, if you haven't opened that box to find something of just in case, the other thing too is to take a look at the things that he's holding on to. Can he buy it? Can he find it again? I know that my parents are really big on keeping margarine containers or empty containers, empty pickle jars of just in case they may need it. And sometimes it's to take a look at, well, what's the quantity? With my parents, the strategy I used was, okay, I see that you have, I don't know, 50 margarine containers, and I'm not joking. There was probably more than 50, but I'm going to use 50 as a solid number. Okay, you have 50 margarine containers. Would you be willing to let go of half? And if half is too much, then you try to reduce it to one quarter. So that this way, even though it's not letting go of everything, it's to start with small steps. What is their comfort zone of letting go? If they're not ready, they're not ready. You can't force somebody to let go. Um,
As
so
you
it's
mentioned, sorry for
yep,
interrupting, but as you
yep,
mentioned also before, there are items that we can borrow just when we need them.
yes,
So that would
yes,
eliminate quite a number of objects. I mean, everybody buys their own
yeah.
tools and things like that, but they sit there and we don't use them. The just in case applies, but is it worth
It's
keeping all
true.
this? Hmm.
It's true. So what I've done over the years, my parents are not close enough, but my dad has quite a lot of tools. If I lived closer, I probably wouldn't own any tools because I would just borrow
Hmm.
his all the time. But I do have friends that have specific tools that they've done grout work or for repairing walls. And if I have things like that to do around the home, I don't have those tools. I reach out to family, friends, or even on your community Facebook pages. I don't know how many times I've seen people say, "Hey, I'm having a family party. I need a folding table. Anybody, can I lend a folding table?" So we're talking about tools, but it could be other stuff. I had somebody who was looking for a fondue set because they were having family over. They only had the one, but they needed a second one. So sometimes it's to think outside the box in that sense. It could also
Hmm.
be that they would be willing to let go of the item if they knew is going to be used by somebody who would need it. So in that case, finding I'm going back to the example of my family with my parents with their margarine containers. Um, what I recommended, I'm like, okay, but would you be willing to give some of those to the food bank? Because sometimes they do prepare food that, or even the shelters where they feed um, the all of the individuals that come to the shelter and they feed them food. Well, sometimes they need the containers. Or um, I've reached out to a few people in the community where they prepare food that they bring to the shelter. So they need those margarine containers or they need those items to be able to help the community. So really looking at maybe maybe shifting his mindset to looking at, well, who can you help if with the items that you have just in case, so that they leave the space and they feel like they've helped the community in one way. That could be also another strategy to use. All right. So I hope that answered your question.
We have quite
Uh,
a few comments
oh,
about, yeah,
okay.
where to donate things, and maybe you can mentioned that you're working on a list of resources.
Yeah. So since the pandemic, I had a resource list, and some of the resources that I have no longer exist, or they've changed what they take and some of the restrictions on what they accept now. So in the next coming, I'm hoping in the next month or so, on my website, I will be adding a resource page for both the Outaouais area and also the Ottawa region. And eventually, I'm going to be adding also the Eastern Ontario. So I'm working towards adding those resources. There's also, if there are any resources that once you see the document and you know of any other good resources, please share them with me because there's always new ones that appear and some of them they no longer exist. So it's always I call it the evergreen, which is constantly shifting and moving and it, it needs to be updated. So my document will have a date as to when I validated the information, but it can shift fairly quickly over time. And there's always new nonprofit organizations that start accepting items here and there. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. So I will keep going.
Sorry, I
Uh,
had my
uh,
microphone off.
uh,
There are suggestions of different places, but what I will do is I will share these chats with you, Julie, and you can
okay.
pick up the information. So thank you everybody for your suggestions, but I will share, yeah,
Yes.
I will share with Julie. Thank you.
So definitely for donating items, you can have stuff that's very generic, like the Value Village, St. Vincent de Paul, Salvation Army, and there's also some of the local, like Matthew House, also accepts some of the donation. You can also drop some stuff up depending on what it is at Habitat for Humanity. But there's also some more local little um, areas that accept donations as well. Some of them it's through your churches, um, and others it's so it could go very, very detailed when it comes to donating. And then depending on what you're looking for as well. Um, we had somebody ask me about books earlier today, and if there are really specific items, then you can go into like sporting equipment, musical instruments, tools, books, sewing,
Antiques, somebody
quilting,
mentioned antiques. What about antiques, you know?
antiques. There are antique dealers in the Ottawa region. uh, they really look at, and this is where I want to put a caveat here, because sometimes we're like, oh, it's an antique. It was something from 1950 or older. They usually look for name brands in the antiques. There are certain companies that are more renowned for, uh, it's like the name brands that we have for clothes that are high end. So sometimes they may not even accept things that you may say is antique. There's a few things that I've brought to the museums. Example, like an old iron that you had to put on a stove to warm up and then to iron the clothes. I've brought that to a history museum. I've also come across um, some war memorabilia that somebody had inherited from their family, that there is medals and stuff like that. Some of these things can also be donated to the War Museum. So really thinking outside the box sometimes can really help to find where you can find the proper home instead of just always sending it to the donation centers. So when it comes, or sorry, Lynn, are there any other questions?
There are quite a few suggestions. I'm trying to, people are interactive and, answering to each other. So
Yes.
Somebody asked if I would make the chat available. I can do that in the follow-up email. So I think we can continue
Yes.
on because I mean these can be
Okay.
endless questions about where
Yes.
to donate things and
Right.
specific scenarios.
There's so many recommendation based on the more detail you get, the more you can get recommendations. And even though I'm going to have a resource list, you're probably going to come up with things that I'm not even aware of. And I'm really grateful for all the recommendations because then I can look into that more specifically and I can add them to my list so that I can share with a lot more people. And it can help those that live either in the Outaouais or the Ottawa region as well,
Yes,
with
and I
figuring
see
out.
there's a lot of requests for a list, and same in the session this morning in French. So people are, yeah,
Yes.
are really in need of knowing where to go.
Well, research is it take time. So if somebody can have that resource list readily available, then I'm more than happy to help with providing some guidance in finding some of the resources. And it could also spark other resources that I'm not aware of that they're like, yeah, my church does take donations, or so definitely it could be a good starting point for everyone. All right,
So
so
I'm
let's keep
thinking you're
going.
at yes, the end of your presentation. I think it's your questions to the next slide, is it? Or
So I'm just going to go through my
okay,
recommendations, and I have about 3 slides left. So I have recommendations, question. Yeah, so I'm almost done.
wait,
Yeah.
wait, wait. Okay.
All right. So recommendations. So start with a um, small area, but also one that's less frequented. Um, because then attic, basement, some of those areas, you may not have touched these items for a long time, which means that most likely those are items that you'll be able to easily let go. Some of those items, if you come across sentimental items, then waiting for those last, like mentioned, because those take a lot more emotional effort into making the decisions. Keeping one box per child for those that have had kids, if you want to keep things from their childhood that you really cherish, keeping one box. And I don't mean like the biggest box you can find, because I know some of you would probably find the refrigerator box to keep things. Just a paper box is a recommended size for if you're keeping things from your children. Reflect on the way that you evaluate the value of your things. So when you're looking at something, would who in your family would appreciate the item and asking them if they want it. Um, the next one is retrieve it from the mud. So what if you drop this item in the mud? Would you take a lot of energy to clean it and to um, to get it back to where it was, or even replace it? Then that would tell you if it's something you want to keep. But if you were to drop it in the mud, would you be like, okay, it's dirty, get rid of it? This will help you. This is a method that you can use. Keeping that in mind, this is a method that you can use to determine, is it something that you really value? Is it something that you would replace if it were damaged by water or even dropping it in the mud? So keep that in mind when you're looking through your items. And then keeping yourself one box of souvenirs. But again, if it's something that you've cherished and it's a great souvenir, display it. There's no reason to hide it in a closet because it's not going to bring any value. And don't forget that this is not or will not be a weekend project. I know some of you are very objective and uh, where very um, what's the word I'm looking for? Not objective, but um, very I can't think of the word. Anyways, so for some of you, you
Analytical.
believe resort, yeah. So for some of you, you believe that this may take less time than what you anticipate, but I can tell you that the longer you've lived in your home, the longer it's going to take to declutter. So it's not a weekend project, and there's no magic wand that will help you to declutter the space either. So we've, are there any other questions?
Right now, there's nothing more in the chat. But I want to mention to everybody, while I have you here, is that we have a partnership. So I say we, the Ottawa branch and the Outaouais branch, we have a new partnership with Videoconference Organisé. And with that partnership, you get a discount of 15% on the services being offered by Julie. So this is a new partnership, and we hope that you will get a good number of interested people. Now, as a reminder, I'm going to be sending you an email with the presentation, with the link to the recording, and the evaluation questionnaire. And we'd really appreciate if you could fill out the questionnaire to give feedback to Julie and also to us, the Outaouais branch. So that would be very much appreciative. So I think that we'll be going on this note. I'm getting a lot of, we're getting, do you see them? The thumbs up and the hearts. And
Yes,
so it seems that
yes. Thank you,
communication
everyone.
is well
I'm
appreciated.
I am grateful that you took some time out of your schedule to come and listen to this presentation, and I'm looking forward to your comments, whether they're positive, constructive, or negative. I will definitely um, work at making this presentation even better next time for the next folks.
Yes. And again, thank you to all the Outaouais branch members for joining us today. We had a really good turnout, so that is very encouraging for future video conferences. So thank you, Julie, again. And if you want to stay online, Julie, and we're going to say goodbye to everybody else. So have a great day, and hopefully we don't get a big snowstorm again. We've had our share already, but enjoy your day, everyone. So if you can just leave the meeting. Stop the recording.